Well, good afternoon, North Bullitt Christian Church. My name is Keith, lead minister here, coming to you with our weekly ministry update. One announcement for you, coming up Saturday, October 24th, from 6 to 8 p.m., we're going to be hosting our annual Trunk or Treat celebration. It's going to be outside, hosted in our parking lot, so that we can ensure your safety, your health, and your well-being as you have fun with us that evening with your kids in costume. And so we want to invite you to come out. We're going to have food trucks available, Hobbies food truck, and then the Kona ice truck will be here for food available for purchase that evening. And then we are going to have trunks set up, handing out and giving away candy. All the candy is going to be in sealed, packaged containers. It will be set out on a table so that as you walk by, you can pick up your own candy, and so that way we're not coming in contact with each other. And so, again, we invite you out to this fun event. With that, North Bullitt Christian Church families, we need your help. We need volunteers to sign up and host a trunk. You can do that either one by clicking on the link in this video description, and it'll take you to Sign Up Genius. You can sign up right there to host a trunk. Or you can let us know on Sunday, reach out to one of our staff members, and we'll make sure you sign you up for that. We only have about 6 trunks right now, so we need a lot more if we're going to be able to host and move forward with this event. So if you're going to participate, let us know that you're willing to help out that evening. With that, we are moving on with our Theology Spotlight. We have been focusing on God's goodness. We're looking at the attributes of God, and we've been looking at God's goodness over the last few weeks. And today we're going to look at an aspect of God's goodness, actually 3 aspects of God's goodness, known as His patience, mercy, and grace. We hear that God is patient. The Bible says that He is slow to anger, that God is merciful, and that God is gracious. And again, these are 3 aspects of God's goodness. They're kind of usually viewed in relation to each other. We witness the grace and mercy of God in His encounter with Moses. Moses asked of God in the book of Exodus to see the glory of God, to which God replies this: I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. And God shows mercy and grace to Moses by allowing Moses to see Him, but He also protects Moses because Moses is a sinful man, and he can't encounter God. God is too great. God is too holy. And so as God passes by Moses, He shields Moses from the full weight of God's glory until He passes by, and then Moses is able to kind of gaze upon the backside of God. That passage is actually later quoted by Paul in the New Testament in Romans 9, relating to God's unmerited grace and mercy in saving people. And so let's look at each one of those aspects, patience, mercy, and grace. What exactly is patience? Theologian Wayne Grudem, we've been using him as we've been going through this study in his book, Systematic Theology. He defines it this way. He defines patience this way. God's patience means God's goodness in withholding of punishment towards those who sin over time. Again, the Bible says that God is slow to anger, and that is to our great benefit. Paul's a great example of God's patience. Paul in the New Testament, he was known as Saul in the book of Acts, and then when he was radically saved by God, by Jesus, he changed his name to Paul. Saul was actively going out and sinning against and murdering Christians, people that were a part of the church. But God was patient with Paul and eventually came to Paul in a very decisive manner, decisive fashion to awaken him from spiritual death to spiritual life. And God does that with us. For those who call upon the name of Christ, God comes to us in decisive ways, bringing us from spiritual death to spiritual life, which is conveyed in faith and trust in the work of Christ. It is in this that we witness also the grace of God. Grudem says this when defining God's grace. He says, God's grace means God's goodness toward those who deserve only punishment. The Bible teaches us that we have all, that is, all humans have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and therefore we are all due God's punishment. But Jesus, right? The good news of Jesus, the good news of the gospel. God's grace came in the person and work of Jesus, that we may be saved through faith in His work. So believing in the work of another person, that is Jesus. Paul knows on a personal level the grace of God, which compelled him to say these words to the church in Ephesus. He says, "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not of your own doing, it is a gift of God." It is God's unmerited favor being poured out on people. Finally, God is merciful. And Grudem defines God's mercy this way. He says God's mercy means God's goodness towards those in misery and distress. God is merciful, and he hears and responds to your distress. God had mercy on Israel while they were enslaved by the Egyptians. If you read through the book of Exodus, he saved them and delivered them. He heard their cry, the Bible says. And I want you to hear this. Take heart. He hears your cry also. These are attributes, as we've been looking at these specific attributes, these are attributes that we share with God, that we can grow in, that we can become more patient, more gracious, and more merciful towards each other, towards other people. And man, don't we need that in this time, to be patient, gracious, and merciful? We're not seeing a lot of those three things within our community and within our culture. And so, Christian, I want to urge you to be a light in those three things. We grow in patience with one another. We're gracious towards each other, and we need that right now. We are merciful, meaning that we empathize. So maybe just for a minute this week, stop and listen to somebody. Stop and listen to somebody that you disagree with. Stop and listen to somebody who's suffering or hurting, and listen to their hurt and their pain and empathize with them. And be merciful towards them. Reach out and help meet their need. Hear their hurt. Hear their brokenness. Stand with the oppressed. Stand with those who are suffering and help them walk through that. That's what God's done for us through his Son, Jesus Christ, which is just amazing news, that we have a God who's been patient with us. We have a God who is merciful and hears our cry, and we have a God who is gracious in sending his Son to reconcile us from his wrath that we rightly deserve. And so walk in light of those things. Walk in light of striving to grow in those in light of God's grace and in light of God's mercy. And so I pray for you this week that you would be working in those things, and not just this week, but walking forward, that you would grow in patience, grace, and mercy, especially in this time of year that we're in and in this 2020 season that we're in. So with that, I want to invite you to come gather with us in person. We meet at 9 and 11 a.m. on Sunday mornings for our worship gathering. So I want to invite you to come, if you're healthy and well, to be able to come and attend and worship with us in person. If not, if you need to remain distant because of the COVID pandemic, we have Facebook Live available for 11 a.m. And so, God willing, we want to invite you and have you come out and gather with us this Sunday. We would love to see you